Okay, so today I thought I'd make a video talking about the pedal board that I am using now in 2026. I've changed a lot of things in my board, upgraded some parts, simplified some things. So I thought it'd be a good chance to talk about what I did and why. Just a disclaimer, I was setting none of these products, all my opinions are my own. And also, this isn't a video of me telling you to just go build what I built. I really want to talk about my philosophy and why I did what I did, how I think about building a board, and maybe that'll help you in building your boards. Essentially, there's a couple things I think a good bass pedal board should do. First of all, you should have a really good DI tone. You're not always going to have access to an amp when you play, and even when you do, that amp is not getting mic'd up. So you gotta make sure you're sending a good sound to front of house. Second, that sound should be pretty mix ready. I want to take care of as much as I can on my board in terms of solving issues so that by the time my signal gets to front of house, I'm not expecting the sound person to fix this and fix that about my sound. I just want it to just work. And lastly, there's a few sounds that I think you have to be able to get as a bass player. You should have a good clean sound, a good dirty sound, and a good synth sound. That'll get you through most gigs you would do nowadays. So coming straight into my board, first up is this my wireless and tuner. If anyone knows me in real life or has seen me play, you'll know I move around a lot on stage, and I'm also quite clumsy, so wireless is pretty mission critical. Also, this kind of gets to my first point. It's dual function. It's a wireless and a tuner, saving space on my board. Wherever you can, if you can have pedals that do more than one thing, the more space it'll save, and the more compact and streamlined your board will end up being. Coming straight into that, my basses sound like this. And it sounds good. And that's the first thing I should mention is if your bass doesn't sound good just straight into your board, you're not going to be fixing that sound with pedals. As my dad always says, you can't put perfume on a pig. So make sure you have a really good sound, that your technique's in order, that your basses are sounding good. I have a whole video on how to shape your tone just by your technique. The next thing I want to talk about is compressor. So for me, a compressor shouldn't be there to solve bad technique. It should be there to enhance what's already good. And when I turn it on, it just sounds just gets a little richer and fuller. It's kind of like if you went from 480p to 4K. And it just really helps the bass sit in a mix. That's where you'll notice compressor the most. Speaking of fitting in the mix, one thing I do love about the Empress is it's got this tone switcher here. So you can either do a 500 hertz cut, if your bass is poking out a little too much in the mix, makes it sound a little warmer, or this 2K boost. Just really helps you cut a lot more if your bass is getting buried. The next thing I want to talk about is this Microtubes Infinity that replaced my X Ultra. And if I load up my clean tone, it sounds like this. And it sounds great. And so when I talk about making your bass mix ready, there's a few things I'm doing with this tone that takes care of that. First of all is a cab sim. A cab sim, I have a whole video on cab sims and IRs. I think they're really useful, really slept on. It's going to kind of tame some of your really muddy extreme lows, and also kind of tame some of your really extreme highs that are going to get a little harsh sounding. So with no cab sim, it sounds like this. And with. And once again, that's just going to help your bass sit in the mix a lot better. The other thing I'm doing that I really didn't do before was multi-band compression. One issue I find is, when I'm on a gig and I have to switch between a bunch of different sounds, my corporate band, we could go from playing a classic rock tune to a disco tune to a country tune, sometimes slap bass, pick bass. Switching between all those sounds and styles, sometimes the low end can just kind of get out of control. Sometimes you're losing low end, sometimes it's getting too boomy depending on sounds. Multi-band compression, I find, makes it so that you can have all these cool different sounds, but still have a really nice, tight, compressed low end, regardless of what else you're doing. And I find that so useful. So with the multi-band turned off, sounds fine, but turn back on, So even Even like when I went for a few slap notes, the low end, super, super tight all the time. And my last secret for dialing a good clean tone is a good clean tone is never actually clean. If you look closely here, you actually see the drive on this is absolutely dimed. I mean, I'm using the Clean 2 preamp, which doesn't get super distorted. But if I was to turn that off, it sounds good, and it sounds nice and warm, but it lacks a lot of presence, and in context with a mix, that's going to make the bass get lost and just make the whole mix sound muddy. So with the saturation coming from the tube overdrive, like it just sounds a lot meaner, and in a mix you're going to hear those details come through a lot more. And this is why I think pedals like the Mantle, the Noble, Sans Amps are a really great example. There's lots of, even just like plugging just into a good tube amp and miking it up. I think that's why all those things add a bit of character, slight saturation, some extra harmonics to your sound that you might not notice on its own, but in a mix is going to really help the bass stay present and not make things muddy. Then, going over to my dirt channel, sounds a bit like this. Sounds nice and grimy and dirty. One thing I think I don't hear a lot of people talk about is I really want my drive channel to be malleable. By that, I mean I don't want to have like a ton of different presets. I don't want to have like a dozen different pedals to handle my overdrives. I just want, for the most part, one, maybe two sounds, and then from there do some shaping. So that sound there, it's a little much for a lot of situations. But if I like go neck pickup, if I pull some treble back, I could kind of get that sort of like, that kind of like nice country sound. Like it's kind of got that warm kind of like a nice warm tube saturation, great for country music. But then also, you know, if I bring both pickups in, maybe crank a little treble, dig in a little more. Like you can get right into that like modern, aggressive, hard rock metal distortion that Darkglass is really known for. So with those two sounds, I could probably get through most gigs. I do have a third preset. It rotates depending on what I'm doing. I've been learning a lot of interval stuff lately. So I have a little bit grittier preset to play some of those songs. Then the last element of my board, if anyone watched my video last year, you probably remember my synth generation station. And that's the biggest change I've made so far here. As great as my synth generation station was, and I was able to get some really good sounds, the problem was I couldn't really switch between those sounds on the fly at a gig. In fact, some of them actually required me to put pedals in different orders and swap them around. You just can't do that. So I always had to have just kind of like a generic one sound fits all, and it just never really cut it for me. Which when I saw the MXR Bass Synth come out, I was like, oh my god, that solves my problems. It's a in-the-box synth pedal, it just has presets built in. So the green presets I kept pretty much the same. I tweaked them a little bit to fit my playing style and the type of music I'm playing. This one I've actually taken quite a liking to for soloing. Really sick preset. Then what's really interesting was, because my old synth generation station had an octave pedal and a chorus pedal in it, I kind of didn't want to lose those sounds on their own. So preset 5 is already an octave and chorus. So then I just made preset 7 just an octave. And if I take the synth off, pretty subtle. Just for adding a little thickness. Let's say I want to make a chorus a little bigger, or you know, fill out a guitar solo. I was actually really impressed with preset 7. It's actually a really great chorus. I kind of like it almost better than the Boss chorus I was using before. And then once again, preset 8, just kind of a wild card if I need to dial in something specific for a gig. I just kind of fool around with this one. Right now it's kind of like, looking at a stereo preset. I did a cover recently. And there you have it. That's my 3 main sounds I'm using and kind of what I did to make them all just kind of sit well and balance in a mix. So now I'll show you a couple examples of those sounds in context of the mix. I took a couple of recordings of some bands I've been playing with over the last couple months and just recorded fresh bass tracks just direct off of this guy, no post-processing. You can kind of see what this is doing. As you can see, without even any post-processing, just the sound coming off of this board just sits in a mix. The bass is not getting in the way of anything else. It's not drowning out the guitars. It's not overpowering the kick drum, but it's still got some nice presence in it and in a variety of styles too. So let me know if you got anything out of this, if this helps inspire the boards that you guys might be building this year. And if you have any questions or if you want to see me make videos about specific pedals and ideas and sounds that I've created, let me know and I'll maybe get to making some of those this year. Anyways, happy playing and ciao.